The Amazfit T-Rex Ultra. Yes, another thing called Ultra. What's up? Welcome back to the channel. I'm Dave from Chase to Summit, and this is the Amazfit T-Rex Ultra. In this video today, we're going to be taking a close, in-depth look at all the features of this watch, because if you went through the spec sheet of this watch, you might see things like improved GPS accuracy with multi-band GPS, pretty impressive battery life specs, offline music storage, and even mapping and navigation support on this watch at a pretty reasonable price point. Amazfit has always focused on a few key areas like the displays, the user experience and user interface, and of course their price point always being a little bit lower than the competition. And that's the case with the Amazfit T-Rex Ultra as well. On the original T-Rex Pro and T-Rex 2, they were pretty impressive watches for their price points, but I did have some issues with GPS accuracy, the heart rate performance, and of course the build quality just being all plastic and not that impressive, along with some of the branding decisions which I didn't love. And a lot of those issues are solved in the Amazfit T-Rex Ultra, and that's why I want to show you it in this video today. Before we get into the hardware though, the first things first, I want to just get this out of the way: pricing and options. The T-Rex Ultra comes in two color versions. There's the black one I have here, and there's a lighter raw steel color with a beige band as well. This watch comes in at $399 here in the USA, which is a significant increase in price compared to the Amazfit T-Rex 2 and T-Rex Pro of the past. Those watches were closer to around 200 bucks. This one is basically double in price, but it is for a couple of reasons. Now let's take a closer look at the hardware and its size and weight. This watch comes in at a 47 millimeter in diameter, and it's about 13.5 millimeters thick, and it is a little bit heavy, coming in at 89 grams with the included band that comes in the box. And for a quick size comparison, I've got some other watches on the table here that we can compare to. All the way on the left, I do have the Garmin Epix Gen 2. Right next to that, we've got the Amazfit GTR 4. Next to that, of course, is the T-Rex Ultra. Then we've got the Apple Watch Ultra. I figured I'd throw that in here since they're both Ultra. Then we've got the COROS Apex 2 Pro. And all the way on the end here is the most expensive Amazfit on the market right now, which is the Amazfit Falcon. And if you compare the Amazfit Falcon to the T-Rex Ultra, you can see that they're both pretty close in size. The Falcon is a little bit smaller in diameter. They're about the same thickness, and they both feel pretty heavy. The Falcon might be just a little bit lighter. And if we take a closer look at the Amazfit GTR 4 compared to the T-Rex Ultra, you can see that the GTR 4 is basically the same footprint, like they're similar in size, but if I flip them on their side, there's a pretty stark difference between these two, where the GTR 4 is much thinner than the T-Rex Ultra. Is that gonna bother you? That's really up to you. This watch is basically the exact same size as something like the Garmin Fenix 7 or this Epix Gen 2. You can see they are nearly identical in terms of footprint. They're similar in thickness, and overall aesthetics and looks, they look pretty much the same. Now when it comes to the build quality on the Amazfit T-Rex Ultra, that's where there's been a huge improvement. The older T-Rex 2 and T-Rex Pro were completely made out of plastic, and they did feel a little bit cheap in the hand. This watch has a stainless steel bezel around the front here. It's also got a stainless steel backplate, and it feels really solid in the hand. This feels like a premium device as compared to some of those older models. The middle material, like what they're sandwiched, the Oreo stuffing in here, is still plastic, but the buttons are metal. This little Amazfit accent on the side, which I think covers up the barometer, is made out of metal. The lugs on the band are made out of metal. And like I said, the bezel and the back are all metal. And in the hand, this thing just feels rock solid. It feels like I'm holding a really high-end Garmin, like a Fenix 7, even though this thing comes in at about half the price of one of those models. The only downside to the build quality on the Amazfit T-Rex Ultra is going to be the display. Unfortunately, unlike the Amazfit Falcon I have here, this watch did not get a sapphire lens, where the Amazfit Falcon does have a sapphire lens, and that makes this lens incredibly scratch resistant as compared to something like Gorilla Glass. I did ask Amazfit what material they used on this lens because it's not sapphire, and they told me it's some kind of mineral glass, which is similar to Gorilla Glass, even though it's not technically Gorilla Glass. It is scratch resistant, but it is not scratch proof. Walking around the exterior of the Amazfit T-Rex Ultra, you'll notice a few things. The front of the watch does have these little exposed screws screws. They're kind of an accent, and there's some tick marks around the bezel, which looks really nice. And when you flip it on its side, you'll notice that there's this sort of hinge where the band meets the watch. And this is a new design from Amazfit. They're calling it adjustable lugs. Basically what this allows the watch to do is to wrap around your wrist and have a smaller footprint depending on your wrist size. I've got 165 millimeter circumference wrists, and when I put the watch on my wrist, you can see that those lugs actually wrap around my wrist really nicely and create a really snug fit, where some other watches with a larger footprint can create sort of a gap between the band and your wrist, which doesn't look or feel that great. And I do like this new design, but I do have one major complaint here, and it's that these bands are technically not removable. So they've got these proprietary screws in here. And if you look closely, there's like 3 little dots, and there probably is some sort of screwdriver out there that can remove these pins, but I don't have one. So I can't remove this band and replace it with something else. And when I asked Amazfit about this, they told me the band is non-removable. So you might find a way to remove this band and replace it, but from what I understand, it kind of is what it is out of the box. Flipping the watch over, you'll notice a couple of things. First of all, the heart rate sensor in the middle of the watch here is the same heart rate sensor that was available on the T-Rex Pro and T-Rex 2. It's also the same heart rate sensor that's on the back of this Amazfit Falcon here. And it's not the same, oddly, as the GTR 4. The GTR 4 got an updated heart rate sensor where the Amazfit T-Rex 2 Ultra did not, and for some reason they're still using the older heart rate sensor. We'll talk about heart rate sensor accuracy a little later in this video. On top and bottom of that heart rate sensor, you'll notice a couple of contacts, and those are for the magnetic charger that's included in the box. I do like this charger. This charger is proprietary to Amazfit, but they use the same charger on a bunch of their watches. You'll notice even the Amazfit GTR 4 I have here has these same contacts, and I can put the magnetic charger on the back of that or on the back of the T-Rex Ultra. The nice thing about this charger is that if you lose it, because it's available on a bunch of different watches, you can actually find replacements of these really inexpensive on Amazon. You can find like a 3-pack for like 10 bucks. So that's nice. It's not a totally unique thing to this watch. A unique feature to the Amazfit T-Rex Ultra is its operating temperature range. This watch can withstand extreme cold and extreme heat from -40°C all the way up to +70°C. So that's a pretty wide range of temperatures. And you can actually use this watch in a special low power mode down to -30°C, where you get limited functionality of the watch in order to save battery life, but it does still continue to work, unlike some of the competition, which would basically just shut down in that kind of cold temperature. The T-Rex Ultra is also military spec rated for shock, water, and dust resistance, and it's waterproof down to 100 meters or 10 atmospheres. Quick interruption, if you're enjoying this video, I'd really appreciate it if you went down and hit the thumbs up button and subscribe to the channel down below, because that really helps me out. Also, if you're planning on picking up an Amazfit T-Rex Ultra or a Falcon or any other watch I show in this video, check out the links in the description down below, because those help support this channel and they cost nothing extra to you. Okay. Back to the video. When it comes to the user interface on the Amazfit T-Rex Ultra, you've got options here. So this watch has a 4-button layout. On the left, you've got an up and down button, and on the right, you have a select button or a start-stop button up top here, and a dedicated back button at the bottom here. And you can get through most of the menu of the watch just using the buttons if it's raining out or you're sweaty and don't want to touch the screen. But if you do want to touch the screen, it is fully touch enabled, so you can swipe around and do everything with your finger with a swipe and a tap instead of using the buttons, which is really nice. On the topic of the buttons of the Amazfit T-Rex Ultra, they actually feel really nice. Like I said, they are made out of metal. They've got a nice haptic click to them when I push down on them. They feel very robust, and they're specially designed to be mud resistant. Now let's talk about the display on the Amazfit T-Rex Ultra, because it is a really, really good display. This is a 1.4-inch AMOLED touch-enabled display, and it gets up to 1,000 nits of brightness. On top of that brightness level, this display is also incredibly high resolution. I don't actually know the resolution. It looks like it's above 400. So it's got a really high pixels per inch, and that makes the text really easy to read. And on top of that, it's got a really high refresh rate, and the CPU or the computer within the watch is very fast and snappy. So when I swipe around the user interface, you can see here, there's really no lag or hesitation. Everything just happens instantly. When I swipe back and forth, everything is just really nice to use. Because this is an AMOLED display, it means that it will turn off when it's not in use. As you can see here, the display turned off, and I can flip it down and flip it back up, and the display will turn back on with that gesture. However, there is a always on display mode that you can toggle in the settings that will allow the watch to keep the display on, so you can tell the time of day all day without having to raise your wrist, or when you're in an activity, you can see your mileage and things like that without having to do that gesture as well. Okay, so the user interface on the Amazfit T-Rex Ultra is very similar to the other Amazfit devices. It's the Zepp OS, ZEPP operating system, and it's the same on all of these watches. So basically, if you swipe down from the top of the screen, you do get into your quick selection menu. That's got things like your do not disturb or brightness settings and things like that. You can swipe over to get additional settings for Wi-Fi and Bluetooth and all of that. Now you've got the watch face here, and this is the watch face that comes out of the box, but if I tap and hold on this watch face, I can select from a whole bunch of different watch faces that are pre-installed on this watch. On top of the pre-installed watch faces, there's also over 120 watch faces within the app on my phone that I can download to the watch and use as well. And I'll show you the app on my phone a little later in this video. Now from the main watch face, if I swipe left, I'll drop into my phone's notifications. And if I swipe right, I'll drop into the app list within the watch. And this is where you can start a workout, see your workout history, your heart rate over time, your stress tracking, your PI settings, your activity, your sleep history, open up a compass, a barometer. You get the idea. There's a whole lot in here, including the weather and your music and all of that. And if I go back to the watch face and swipe up, I will drop into my sort of cards or tiles for the day. So right at the top here is the weather widget. If I tap in on that, I can get more detail about the weather. And the weather widget on this watch is really good. At the top here, you can see sort of a temperature graph. You've got a forecast. You've got some information about the air quality and fishing conditions and whether or not you should get a car wash for some reason, along with a upcoming forecast. Going back to the cards or tiles here, I can scroll down and get even more information like my training information or even my sleep history. So if I dive into the sleep widget here, you can see it shows my previous night of sleep, 6 hours and 47 minutes, with a graph of my deep and light sleep, along with a sleep score and information about my sleep stages. And one unique thing to the Amazfit line of watches that doesn't occur on other watches is naps. These watches will actually pick up naps throughout the day, where something like my Garmin here ignores naps. So that's a nice touch that Amazfit does. Now let's talk about music for a second. I'm gonna dive right into the music app here. And in this app, you've got a couple of options. You can first control the music on your phone from the watch. If you've got your phone buried away in a backpack or in your running vest or something, you can change your songs or volume or whatever right from your watch without having to deal with digging out your phone, which is really nice. However, on top of that, the Amazfit T-Rex Ultra also has internal storage for music. This watch has 2.3 gigabytes of internal storage where you can upload MP3 files to the watch and listen to them in earbuds that are paired directly to the watch, so you can run phone free with music, which is really nice. There are a couple of issues with this though. It does not support anything like Spotify or Amazon Music or Apple Music or anything like that. You have to use plain old MP3 files, which for some people can be a hassle because everybody these days has a subscription to one of these streaming services and not everybody has access to straight up MP3 files. Another thing is 2.3 gigabytes is not a ton of storage for music. You'll be able to store a couple of hundred MP3 files on there, but you won't have thousands of songs in here with that amount of storage. I did do some testing with various pairs of earbuds with this watch, and most of them paired up to it without any issues. However, I did have some issues pairing my Apple AirPod Pro 2s to the Amazfit T-Rex Ultra. I don't know why. Most of the other brands worked, like Beats or Jaybirds or any of those other brands. They paired up to this watch just fine, and they worked with the internal storage. Another nice feature on the T-Rex Ultra is the various training tools that are included with this watch. As you can see here, I do get a full training load, and you can see my training load for the past 7 days. If I swipe over, you can see my estimated VO2 max, which seems a little low. My other watches report over 50. This is telling me 44, but you know, it is what it is. And if I swipe over one more time, you do see the recovery advisor that's telling me I should wait 17 hours before my next workout. Now, when it comes to tracking an activity like a run or a ride, the Amazfit T-Rex Ultra has a ton of activity profiles. If I dive into the workout menu here and scroll down, you'll see there's everything from outdoor running, trail running, walking, treadmill use, hiking, climbing, strength training, etc. But if I scroll all the way down, you'll notice there's also triathlon and multi-sport mode for you triathletes out there that need the ability to switch from run, swim, and cycle. You can do that now on the Amazfit T-Rex Ultra. On top of that, you can go all the way down and click on more workouts, and now you can see even more workout activity profiles that are available, from dancing and combat sports, ball workouts, water workouts, winter workouts, extreme workouts. Well, I wonder what that is. Let's take a look. Parachuting. They've also got things like hula hooping and frisbee and darts and kite flying and tug of war, and there's a lot, including esports, that's playing video games. You can do that with the T-Rex Ultra as well. The Amazfit T-Rex Ultra also has automatic workout detection that you can toggle on in the settings, so I can actually tell it what types of workouts I want it to look out for, like walking, indoor walking, running, treadmill, outdoor cycling, pool swimming, elliptical, or rowing. Now, when it comes to the actual activity profiles, you can fully customize the data pages in the activity. You can see here, you can have up to 6 data fields per activity page. Another welcome feature when it comes to activity tracking on the T-Rex Ultra is that it now supports external sensors. It does support Bluetooth, BLE, or Bluetooth smart sensors like this Garmin HRM Pro I have here. You can see that it's already showing up on my accessory list on the watch itself. Now, on top of heart rate straps, you can also pair things like power meters from a bike, but unfortunately, there is no support for running power sensors like a stride pod or anything like that. Okay, now that we've looked at the user interface on the watch, I want to show you the companion app on my phone. The app that works with the T-Rex Ultra is called Zepp, Z-E-P-P. It's available for iOS and Android, and it's a pretty good app. As you can see from the dashboard, on the top left area, you can see the watch and its charge level, which is at 100% right now. And below that, I've got all of my stats for the day, how many steps I have so far, my sleep from the previous night, my heart rate stats, along with my exercise stats like my VO2 max and my training load, along with calories burned for the day, and it's telling me insufficient. Thank you for that. And then all of my settings are below that for running, walking, cycling, all of the watch faces that I could download, app alerts, alarms, etc. You get the idea. It's kind of like every Amazfit watch, even though the app has been updated over time. And down at the bottom of the homepage here, you can see my Zepp Coach. This is a AI-enabled coaching platform within the Zepp app that gives you suggested workouts on how to improve your fitness over time. And this is new. This came out back when the Amazfit Falcon came out a couple of months ago, and it's gotten better. You can see here it's telling me to take a rest day today, and that's based on the activity of the week. This week I've got 119% of my goal. In my testing, the Zepp Coach is pretty good. I feel like it would probably be better suited for more of a beginner, just getting into cycling or running. This might be a good guide to start with and maybe build from. For more advanced runners, it may not be a great solution. You may have to tweak it or customize a little bit more, but it is a good starting point. Now that we've talked about the app a little bit, I want to talk about one of the biggest updates to the Amazfit T-Rex Ultra, and that is offline maps support. This watch now supports offline maps, and what that means is you can download a map to the watch and have it on your wrist and be out in the wild and be able to see where you are with some context of what's around you, whether that be a trailhead or a road or a waterway or the summit of a mountain. You'll be able to see that right on your wrist with an actual map rather than just breadcrumb navigation. So the mapping on the T-Rex Ultra and the Falcon is not the same as something like a Garmin watch, where Garmin, you get a whole region, like I've got the entire United States on this watch, where on the Amazfit T-Rex Ultra, you'll actually have to go ahead and download tiles for the region that you'll be in. And I'll show you how to do that now. So if I go into my Amazfit Zepp app on my phone and go to my watch page here, I can scroll down and there's actually app settings for map. And if I click on map, that's going to bring me to this display here. So as you can see, I can only download so much information because the amount of storage this takes on the watch is pretty significant. So here I'm downloading a 18 by 28 miles square around the city of Boston here in Massachusetts. And if I go ahead and click add to device, It says the device already contains a map, which I've already downloaded here, and this will replace it. And if I click yes, this will actually upload. It'll download the map to my phone and then upload the map to my watch so I can see it on the watch instead of on my phone. And I won't need a cellular or internet connection to see the map, which is awesome. So let me tell you about the mapping experience and navigation on the Amazfit T-Rex Ultra. So there's a couple of things to keep in mind. These maps are not routable. This means that you can't put in a point of interest or the summit of a peak or a parking lot or an address into the watch directly and have the watch do real-time turn-by-turn navigation to get to that point. These maps are essentially a base map. It's just a picture, an image of a map. Another thing to keep in mind is that the mapping on this watch does not have labels. So if you see a road or trail or anything like that, you won't actually see the name of that road or trail. These maps also do not have topo contour lines, so they won't tell you the current elevation or anything like that. They're really just for context. A couple more things to note about the mapping on this watch is that the process of downloading the map to your watch takes forever. You have to pair the watch directly to your Wi-Fi network in your home in order to get the maps. And even with Wi-Fi, it took me like 2 hours to download the first map I put on this watch. I actually went back and made it a smaller map to try to get less data to make it go faster, and it still took an insanely long amount of time. Another thing to keep in mind with this mapping support is that you do need Wi-Fi in order to get it to the watch. So you can't do this in your car at the trailhead. You have to plan ahead. You have to be at home with a good stable Wi-Fi connection in order to get the map to the watch. Otherwise, you won't be able to get the map to the watch because you can't do it with just your phone. You need Wi-Fi as well on the watch. But despite all of the downsides and quirks about the mapping on the T-Rex Ultra, it's still a huge advance in the right direction for them, and I'm so glad they included mapping on this watch. I'm hopeful that down the road, maybe we get routable maps. We're not there yet, but time will tell. Okay, now let's talk about GPS accuracy on the Amazfit T-Rex Ultra because it's pretty interesting because this watch now supports multi-band GPS. I've taken the T-Rex Ultra on a whole bunch of different runs while also wearing my Garmin Epix Gen 2 and the COROS Apex 2 Pro, and these two watches are both multi-band enabled as well, so they're a good baseline of comparison. And what I've noticed is that the T-Rex Ultra is doing a much better job compared to some of the older Amazfit devices out there. There still were some areas where it was a little bit off, but by and large, it was pretty much on the same track as the Garmin and the COROS files that I compared to. I'll also note that the overall distance recorded on the T-Rex Ultra was very similar to the Garmin and COROS files as well. So overall, it's looking pretty decent in the GPS accuracy department. Okay, now that we've talked about GPS and distance accuracy on the T-Rex Ultra, let's talk about heart rate accuracy on the T-Rex Ultra. And unfortunately, that's a department where it didn't get much better. Like I said before, the heart rate sensor on the back of this watch is the same heart rate sensor that they've used in the past on the Amazfit Falcon and on the original Amazfit T-Rex Pro and T-Rex 2. My history with this heart rate sensor is not very good, and unfortunately that's the case with the T-Rex Ultra as well. The T-Rex Ultra, on some runs, I was getting decent results, where on others, I was getting pretty terrible results. And to compare it, I've also been wearing an ECG sensor on my chest, which is the Garmin HRM Pro, and I had that paired to my Garmin Epix Gen 2. And on my other wrist, I was also wearing the COROS Apex 2 Pro, so I had a good baseline of comparison between multiple devices. So first up, let's look at a bad example that I got from this watch. You can see that the lines are kind of all over the place. Just an overall pretty bad heart rate track or heart rate graph from this watch on this particular run. However, if we look at a different run in a more controlled environment, like on my treadmill, you can see that the T-Rex Ultra does a better job, and it's closer to being in line with the Garmin HRM Pro than it was before. I'm not sure why that is. I don't know if when I'm running, I'm flailing my arms around a little bit more when I'm outdoors. I'm not really sure. All I know is I wore this watch very tight on my wrist in all of my testing, and it just seems like a flip of the coin whether or not I'm going to get a good result or a bad result. What I will say is heart rate sensors have so many variables, like the color of your skin, the hair density on your wrist, your body fat percentage, if you have tattoos or not. All of that plays a role in accuracy, so you might have better results than I do. All I can say is my results with this watch weren't that great. Now let's talk about battery life on the Amazfit T-Rex Ultra because it's pretty impressive. So with out-of-the-box settings, if you just take this thing out of the box and put it on your wrist, you will get up to 20 days of use with this as a smartwatch in typical use. If you're more of a heavy user, you turn on the always-on display, you're doing a bunch of activities, you're looking at more like 9 days of use. So on top of smartwatch and heavy use, if you need ultimate battery life, you can put it into battery saver mode, which will disable some of the sensors, but it will get you up to 25 days of use. Now, when it comes to GPS activity battery life, that's a whole other can of worms, and there's a bunch of different settings that you can enable on this watch. If you want the best accuracy GPS, it will use multiband, and that will give you up to 28 hours of use. If you need more battery life than 28 hours in a GPS activity, you can go into standard GPS mode or power saving GPS mode, which will give you reduced accuracy by using only GPS and not multiband GPS, and that will give you up to 58 hours of use. And then for the most battery life in a GPS activity, you can go into endurance mode that will really reduce the accuracy, but give you up to 80 hours of use on a single charge. So that brings us to the final segment of this video, which is my conclusions and final thoughts about the T-Rex Ultra. I think the T-Rex Ultra is a really interesting device. At that $400 US price point, it's pretty impressive. It's got great build quality, you've got offline music, and the inclusion of offline mapping is a huge benefit to this watch and a pretty big selling point in my opinion, even though some other people don't care about it as much. I really like the mapping function and I'm glad they included it here. Now, unfortunately, they didn't make big progress in other departments, like the heart rate sensor is still pretty lackluster. I wish they updated that. And I wish this watch did have a sapphire lens because that would really help the rugged, robust build quality look of this watch and make it just a little bit more of a Garmin competition. What I will say about the brand Amazfit as a whole is that they're really moving the needle in the right direction. You may have your thoughts about the brand as a whole, and that's up to you. But what I can say is they're releasing a ton of firmware updates. And with these new watches like the T-Rex Ultra and the Falcon, these are premium devices. When you have this on your wrist, it feels like you're wearing a very expensive watch. And now you've got offline mapping and navigation and music storage and all the things on a watch that's less than $400. And in a world of Garmin Epixes that cost $1,000, that's kind of refreshing, and I hope they keep moving in that direction. On the other hand, this watch is $400, and if you put the build quality and mapping aside, for $400, you can get a really compelling option from Garmin or from COROS. With all of those ramblings aside, we have finally reached the end of this video, and now I want to hear from you. Are you interested in the T-Rex Ultra? Let me know in the comments down below. I would love to hear from you. Let me know what features interest you, or if you're just gonna skip it and go with a Garmin or a COROS or a Suunto or one of those other options. And with that, we have finally made it to the end of this video. And if you're still watching, I bet you probably liked this video. And if you did like it, I would really appreciate it if you gave me a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel down below. That would really help me out. Also, if you're planning on picking up an Amazfit T-Rex Ultra or a Falcon or a GTR4 or any watch that I showed in this video, check out the links in the description down below because those links do help support this channel and they cost nothing extra to use. So you might as well use them. And with that, I gotta go now. I've been talking way too long. That's the end of this video. That's it. I don't think I forgot anything. I probably did. I'll see you next time. Bye.